Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to introduce to you the founder and chairman of BNI, Dr. Ivan Misner, of the world's largest business networking organization. BNI was founded in 1985. The organization now has over 6,600 chapters throughout every populated continent in the world. Last year alone, BNI generated 5.4 million referrals, resulting in $6.5 billion worth of business for its members. Dr. Misner has a PhD from the University of Southern California. He is a New York Times best-selling author who's written 19 books, including his recently released book called Who's in Your Room? That is available right outside the door. He's a columnist for Entrepreneur.com and Business Fox News. He's taught business management at several universities throughout the United States. In addition, he's a senior partner for the Referral Institute, a referral training company with trainers around the world. Called the father of modern networking by CNN and the networking guru by Entrepreneur magazine, Dr. Misner is considered to be one of the world's leading experts on business networking and has been a keynote speaker for major corporations and associations throughout the world. He has been featured in the LA Times, Wall Street Journal, and New York Times, as well as numerous TV and radio shows, including CNN and the BBC and the Today Show on NBC. Dr. Misner is on the Board of Trustees for the University of Laverne. He is also the co-founder of the BNI Charitable Foundation and was recently named Humanitarian of the Year by the Red Cross. He and his wife, Elizabeth, are now empty nesters, where they have 3 adult children. Oh, and in his spare time, he's also an amateur musician and a black belt in karate. So walk softly. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome the founder and chairman, Dr. Ivan Misner.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Today, I was asked to do some material from a brand new book. The book is called Who's in Your Room? Maybe we can pull the slide on up. Who's in Your Room? And that's what I'm going to be talking about today, because when I first heard this concept, it was at a conference, a transformational leadership conference, and a good friend of mine did this presentation called Who's in Your Room? And I listened to this presentation and I thought, oh my goodness, this is all about BNI. This is about BNI. I mean, it's not about BNI, but it's about BNI. It has so much to do with what we do. And so he was kind enough to invite me to participate in the book. But before I go into the material that I want to cover today, I want to let you know that I will be able to have a little time to do some Q&A here this morning, but I'll have plenty of time later today to do some Q&A in the Ask the Founder session. So hopefully if you don't get a question asked here today, just hang on to it until later, and I'm happy to cover it. The only dumb question is the unasked question. Okay, so let's talk about who's in your room. What is that all about? So imagine that you live your entire life in one room. Think of a room, your office or your home. Think of a room in your home. It's one room. You live your entire life in that one room. And in that room, there is only one door. Imagine that room has only one door that works, and that door is an enter-only door. Once someone enters that room, they can never leave, ever. If that were true, would you be more selective about who you let in your room? Nodding is the universal sign of recognition, yeah? Yeah, you know, I've been talking about this for some time with a lot of people, and I've never talked to a group of people where anyone said, oh, no, I wouldn't care. Whoever's in, it doesn't matter. They always say, oh, yeah, I'd be a whole lot more selective about who I let in my room. Well, the thing is, whoever you let into your room ends up, or your life ends up affecting you and your life. Now, luckily, this is a metaphor. You can get people out of your room. You can get people who probably weren't good choices for a chapter. You can get them out, but it's not easy to get people in your life out, to get people in a chapter out. It's very difficult. And the truth is, the people you let into your room, the people who you let into your life, end up really determining what your room is like. They determine what your life is like. So if you have an angry room, it's because you've let people into your life who are angry. And the same applies to your chapters. If you let people into your chapters that are basically angry, then you're going to have a chapter that is very angry. It could be a loud room. Is your room full of chaos? That is so not my office, by the way. I'm like very anal retentive about things being in their place. Is it a busy room? What is your room like? I want you to think about, what's your life like? What's your room like? Is it a boring room? Is your room too full? Are there too many people? This is what I hear a lot. Just way too many people have gotten into my room. You have a room with drama. Oh, I hate drama. I hate drama. And I found myself, my room was full of drama. There was just like way too much drama in my room. And I realized I was letting these people in. I was creating this myself. Is it a weird room? Or is it a safe room? Is it a happy room? Is it a room with people who share your goals? That's a good room. Is it an exciting room? Is it a fun room? Woohoo! I noticed that there's a little alcohol involved in this one, though. Is it a fun room? Is it a room with success? Yeah, I got this slide from Don Lyons. Thank you, Don. Is it a room full of success? This is a great slide. Here's the thing. We are the architects of our room. We create the room that we live in. The people we let into our chapter becomes the kind of chapter that it is. The people we let into our lives, it affects our lives in so many ways. The view that you have of yourself and whether you truly believe that you can develop to be the person that you want to be profoundly affects the room you live in. It profoundly affects your life. So going forward, you can become vigilant and attentive to who's knocking on your door, who's thinking about getting into your room. Do you have a hard time saying no to people? That's a big problem that people have. If you have a hard time saying no, if you have a hard time saying no, and you look at this with this completely different approach to life, it makes it much easier to realize which things are a distraction and which things are an opportunity. You can learn to manage who you already have gained, who's already gained entry to your room when you understand this concept. And one of the most important things about it is this. You need a doorman. You need a doorman. Okay, so I'll be politically correct. You need a door person. All right? You need I live in a place that has a doorman. So I literally have a doorman. His name is Marco. Marco is my doorman. Now, what I'm talking about is not a real honest-to-goodness person. I'm talking metaphorically. Your doorman is in effect, your subconscious. And your subconscious is the person it's the part of your brain where you're screening people that come in based on your values. This means that you have to get really, really clear in your mind what your values are and what matters to you. And that doorman in your mind is the person that says, wait a minute, let me think about this person. Does this person really fit my values? Do they have a mission that's kind of similar to mine? Now, when I thought this was an interesting concept that Stuart was talking about. But when he got to the doorman, I thought, wow, this really is BNI. We have not a metaphorical doorman. We have literally a doorman. Who's our doorman in BNI? The membership committee, that's our doorman. And it's not a subconscious group. It is a real group. And the quality of the doorman of a chapter absolutely determines the success of that chapter. It is probably one of the most important groups of people in a BNI group. The membership committee is literally, they are the door people for a chapter. Door people just doesn't sound as right as doorman, you know. So the key is that you as an individual and your chapter need to think about what are your values. What are your core values? Now, certainly in an organization, we have a philosophy of doing business. And that philosophy is giver's gain. That we're there to help other people, and that's important. But what are some of the other values of your chapter that you want to think about? And they probably surround, there are issues like support, cooperation, collaboration, helping one another. And so you want to look for people that are coming into your group with those values. But you also have to ask yourself, what's important to you personally? What are you passionate about? Who do you really want around you? That's so important. And it's one of those things that we often don't think about. We just kind of go day in and day out, and the people we bump into are the people we bump into. And when we see a potential business opportunity, sometimes we just go for it without thinking about whether this individual and their values are at all congruent with who we are. It's really important to learn to say no. No is a one-word sentence. It can be used very effectively. A good friend of Beth and I is in the book. Her name is Libby Sheely, and Libby says that before she had a doorman, her life, her room was like, and I love this expression, she said her room was like the waiting area of an ER. It was like the waiting area of an emergency room. She was always admitting one wreck after another. She said, you got to be selective about who you let in your room. It's important to understand what the difference is between a distraction and an opportunity. A distraction is a possible opportunity, but it doesn't fit your values. It doesn't fit your mission. Therefore, it really ends up being truly a distraction. An opportunity is, when we're talking about business, certainly some financial opportunity, but it fits your values and it fits your mission. And those are the things you don't want to say no to. So then, what's your mission? Well, the truth is you have to let your mission fill your room. You have to let your mission fill your room. So it's about, why do you do what you do? A lot of us have never really thought about, why do you do what you do? Peter from Denver is in the book, and he used to think that he wanted to have the ¡1 restaurant and catering service in Colorado. That was his goal. The #1 catering service and restaurant in Colorado. And he used to say that. Well, he used to say that for a long time. But he noticed that the more he said it, the more stressed he felt. And the more stressed he felt, the more difficult it was to deliver the level of service that he wanted to deliver. And that he was hiring people that he didn't really feel comfortable with. But he was hiring them because he wanted to be number one. And when he heard this concept, he went back and he really reflected for a period of time. And the more he thought about it, the more he thought about, I want to be the #1 restaurant and catering service, the worse he felt. The worse he felt. It didn't fit for him. And he said the truth is that after a lot of soul searching, he realized that what he really wanted was to be a joy giver. Now, that sounds crazy, but that was it. He wanted to bring joy to everyone who sat down in his restaurant or that he served in his catering service. That was it. He said, that's what I want to do. Now, that became his mission. He is well on his way to becoming the #1 restaurant and catering service in Colorado, because he focused on his mission. When we focus on our mission, when we focus on our values, you can accomplish so much more when all you want to do is hit some financial target. You've got to focus on what your mission is. And then from that mission, set goals and objectives. As you bring people and prospects into your life that fully align with your purpose, your values, and your objectives, those positive decisions kind of compound over time. And they end up actually making you more successful by focusing on values rather than just money. However, the opposite is also true. If you pay no attention to the type of people and the things that you allow into your life, and you're operating in a random fashion, or you're operating in a way that has nothing to do with your mission, then your life becomes so much more chaotic, and your chapters become so much more chaotic. It's easy in today's culture to lose the way. It really is. It's easy in today's culture to kind of lose your way. You know, Mae West, the actress from many, many years ago, once famously quipped, she said, "I used to be Snow White, but then I drifted." And I think sometimes we have an idea of who we want to be and what we want to do, but we drift from that. However, if you stay focused on your values and your mission, you don't. Measuring things can help you track your progress, but it's all a journey towards the goal of hitting those values. This is where your values, just become so important in achieving whatever success. Your room should be comfortable. So why isn't it? Sometimes it's obvious to everyone else but you. I go visit chapters of BNI, and they're struggling or there's issues, and they don't understand it because they're so close to it, and they haven't thought about who they want in their room. And they're letting anyone into a group. So many chapters, I say, the only test a lot of chapters give is what I call the mirror test. They put a mirror under somebody's nose. If it fogs up, you're in. We'll take you. You don't have the application? That's all right. You're a member. Fill it out next week. And so we want you to be more selective about who you let into your room. Selective for the right reasons, not based on race, religion, color, or sex, but based on quality of business professional. If your room isn't comfortable, it's a little bit like walking with a small stone in your shoe. We've all done that, right? We've been walking around, there's a little small pebble or a stone in our shoe, but the difference is that we can stop and we can take our shoe off and drop that pebble out. In the room concept, it's not so easy to get somebody out of your room. You can't just take your shoe off and drop them out. It's not nearly that simple. So it's very important that your room be a comfortable room, which means you need to make better choices. When you or your doorman say yes or no, it shouldn't be an automatic response to anything, including taking clients. There are many stories throughout the book of business people who say, you know what, there are certain clients I decided not to take. Their money was good, but their values weren't. And it wasn't conducive to who I am and the direction I want to go in. What should happen instead in a chapter and in your life is to create a deliberate process in which you see that this person is a good fit or not a good fit. It's counterintuitive that being selective actually helps you be more successful. It's completely counterintuitive. Because sometimes in business, we almost get so desperate for business, we'll take just about anything that walks through the door, and we find that we then let drama and chaos and anger and frustration into our room, which takes time away from the things that really excite us and get us to be really successful. I love this one. Are you in your room? Are you actually there? So there's a great story in the book from Joni Emery, who's Stuart Emery's wife. Elizabeth and I know her very well. And Joni Emery tells this great story. When she was a young child, maybe 6 years old, and she went to bed, and in bed, she was lying there, and she looked up, and her entire room, the walls were full of stuffed animals and dolls on the shelves. And one just kind of caught her eye. And she thought that the doll looked lonely. So she got up and she took the doll off the shelf and brought her in bed and was cuddling with the doll. And then she looked up and she realized that there was another doll up there that was probably fairly lonely too, because she was there with the one next to her. And so she went up and took that and brought it down. After a few minutes, she thought, well, there's another one. I can't leave that one there, and brought it down. And, over about a 15-minute period, she ends up literally getting every single doll and every single stuffed animal off the shelf and taking it to bed with her. And after a little while, her dad just came in and looked at her and said, Joni, honey, what are you doing? And Joni said, she remembers saying, well, Daddy, I didn't want anyone to feel left out, so I just brought all my animals and my dolls to bed. And her dad said, but honey, you're sleeping on the floor. She had literally moved to the floor because her bed was now full of animals. Are you in your room? You have so many people in your room, or people in your room that you don't want to be with, that you, in fact, pull out of your own room. That's the wrong room. Let's talk about the unwanted member. The unwanted member. This is in the book. We actually have a story in there about sometimes you have to look at people again for what the values and mission, your mission, bringing them into your room as opposed to what you think they can bring to you in terms of financial return. Because the bottom line is, and I know everyone in this room has heard it. I know everyone has heard this. You never know who people know. But when it comes right down to it, sometimes we make choices, even though we intellectually understand that you never know who people know, we sometimes ignore that in real life. And there's a great story by our very own Frank DeRaffley, who's an executive director in New York. And he tells a story in there about Paul, who was a financial planner and a member in New York, a member of BNI in New York. And he said that the group, Paul said, look, you know what, why are we letting some people into this chapter that are small businesses, single entrepreneurs? We should have a policy in this chapter that only members who have 10 employees or more are allowed into the group. Because we just allowed this young woman, Jacqueline, he was really upset. She's a 20-something young woman, allowed her into the group. She had very little experience, didn't have a lot of clients. And he said, we should have never let her into the group. This is, doesn't make any sense. We want people that are really successful. And Frank spoke to the guy, and he talked about values, and he talked about mission, and he talked about attitude. That's a really, really important one. People used to ask me, what are the top characteristics of a great member? And I used to say, about their success and their education, their background, their experience. I don't say any of that anymore. The top 3 characteristics for a great BNI member are, in order of importance: 1, attitude; 2, attitude; 3, see you know. It is attitude, attitude, attitude. And Frank talked to him about the fact that this woman has an incredible attitude. And the fact that she's young means that as she becomes more and more successful, she's going to actually be using more and more of these professionals. And Paul would have none of it. He just didn't buy it for a second. Well, guess what? 6 months later, Jacqueline came to the group. Paul was a financial planner. Jacqueline came to the group with a little referral. It was a $2.5 million referral, which was an inheritance from a real close family friend. A $2.5 million referral for the financial planner. And she gave it to Paul. Now, Frank was there. Yeah. And Frank, only as Frank can do, and many of you know Frank went up to him and said, hey, Paul, we should have kicked her butt out 6 months ago, shouldn't we? Yeah, and Paul was like sheepish at that point. He was like, no, I can't believe I said that. Frank said, is that the largest referral that you ever got in BNI? He said, not only is that the largest referral I've ever gotten in BNI, that is the single largest referral I have ever gotten in my career. And it came from this woman who he thought shouldn't be in his room because she wasn't successful enough. I'm telling you, it's not just about how successful someone is. Because if they have the right attitude, they'll make the connections. I heard a story yesterday, literally yesterday, from Mike Braithwaite tonight. I don't know if you're in the room, Mike, but I think it's an incredible story, and I asked them to write it down and send it to me. So if I get it wrong a little, I apologize, Mike. But it's such a powerful story. He said he went to a chapter meeting. He's from Manhattan with Todd. And he went to a chapter meeting, and someone was there really in a profession that didn't quite fit the profession, and it was he was a songwriter and musician. And the members were like, songwriter or musician? Yeah, thanks, nice to meet you. And they didn't talk to him. I mean, hello, they were polite, but nobody had a conversation with him because he was a songwriter and a musician. Well, Mike talked to him after the meeting. He happened to have conducted a little song. You may have heard it, We Are the World. He was also a songwriter for Michael Jackson. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't have a referral, but that would be somebody I would like to talk to. Right? I would love to have a conversation with that person. And so people saw him and saw songwriter and musician and just filled in the blanks without even having a conversation to find out what kind of person he is. When I tell you, you never know who someone knows, I would also add to it, you never know who someone is. I've met so many people who were so unassuming that you would have never believed who that person was. I had a chance to do a fundraiser once, or do a board meeting for a nonprofit organization. And the event was at a movie director's house in the Hollywood Hills. And I was at this board meeting, and before the board meeting got started, we were told we were welcome to walk around a large part of the house and check it out. And I'm walking through the house, and there's some guy in a T-shirt with a work belt, and he's fixing an electrical socket. And he was pretty busy. I didn't say anything to him. I found out later that was the director. He was just fixing some stuff around his house. And I didn't talk to him. We all do this. I get it. The more we understand, though, that these people, and not everybody you meet is going to be a movie director or, a songwriter for Michael Jackson, but I'm telling you, I've met some people that I struck up a conversation with and then was amazed who I was talking to. You never know who people are, and you never know who they know. Now, on the other hand, there are these people. These are the people, I call them shower moment. A shower moment. That's where you meet somebody. Okay, we've all had these shower moments. We meet somebody, we walk away and we go, I need a shower. I need a shower. There was just something wrong. And we ignore those moments. We ignore those moments. We have that feeling, but then we go ahead and do something like maybe do business with that person. And it seems completely obvious when I talk about it in this context, but the truth is we do it all the time. A great story in the book from Jeff Enziger, executive director in Central Illinois, and he tells about meeting someone just like that at a meeting, at a BNI meeting. And he met this guy and he was like, there's something wrong here. But he had an application and a check. Mirror test. You're in. And the chapter was forming, let him in. Within a few months, everybody realized that this guy was a problem guy. Now, who's in your room is a metaphor. Okay, so you can get people out. You can get people out of your life. You can get people out of your room, out of your chapter, but it's not easy. It's not easy. And sometimes they're nice people. Sometimes they're not. But it's still difficult to get people out when it's not a good fit. And this gentleman was not a good fit. And so when they tried to remove him from the chapter, he started sending letters, harassing emails, making angry phone calls, and then Lawyers got involved. And the chapter folded. And Jess said, I knew when I met him it was a shower moment, and I ignored it. Don't ignore those feelings. It's all about your values and whether you're being congruent with the kind of people that you're letting into your life. Some lessons cost a whole lot more than other lessons. I'm not immune to this. I am not immune to this. If you think that I have some of the answers, I'm here to tell you it's because I failed the midterm. I have made plenty and plenty of mistakes. I'm studying up on all of this just like you are. I've made lots of mistakes. Years ago, I was about to start a big project, and the most qualified guy for the work came to the table with extreme drama. You remember what I said about how I felt about drama? Okay, I'm clearer on it now than I was then. I realized I didn't like drama, but I ignored it. I ignored the drama because he had the technical expertise. And I figured, look, I can deal with the drama. Anybody else ever have a situation like that? I can deal with, I'm not the only person, right? I can deal with the drama because he's so good at what he does. Man, was I wrong. I was so totally wrong. The project was a total mess. I was miserable. When I was right in that situation was the first time I heard Stuart do this talk. The first time I heard Stuart do this talk. The next week, I went home and fired him. And the project turned around. Even though he might have been technically the most talented person to do it, there's just too much drama. And he brought way too much other stuff to the table. And I see this happen all the time in BNI groups, where we take people in who are on paper very qualified, but they don't fit for one reason or another. All right. A room shapes you. BNI is all about people's experiences, members and visitors. You know, when a visitor comes to your chapter, it's all about the experience they have. They're going to either have a good experience or a bad experience based on what happens to them there. They're either going to have no one come up and talk to them, like the Michael Jackson songwriter, or they're going to feel really welcome to the group. Members, the same thing, week in and week out. Going to have a good experience or a bad experience. And that experience is largely dependent on who is in that room. And who is in that room helps to, in many ways, shape you and definitely shape the chapter. Beth Sobolov, who's here, she's a BNI director consultant in Massachusetts, and she says the people in our room shape us for both good and bad. They shape us in good ways, they shape us in bad ways. And she talks about how BNI helped shape her and the many, many relationships that she's created. I think I can sum up a lot of what Beth says in a sentence. Mom got it right. You become the people you hang out the most with. The people you hang out with shape you as much as you shape them. Think of the most negative, caustic person in your professional life. The more you are around that person, the more they shape you. My advice, raise the rent and evict them. Get caustic people out of your life. Now think of the most positive, supportive persons in your life. The more you're around them, the more they shape you. You become the people you hang out with. Surround yourself with positive, supportive people who have similar values, who want to contribute, who want to collaborate, who want to help, who want to give you business because you're there to help give them business. The room shapes you as much as you shape the room. Okay, this one. How would you treasure the breaths that you have left? There's a great story in there from a New York Times bestseller author, Janine Roth, and she tells a story about a near-death experience she had and how important it is to treasure the breaths that you have left. And that hit home with me when I read that story. It really hit home with me. You may not know, a couple years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer, and so that's a real wake-up call for a lot of people. And by the way, just so you know, I tell the whole story. By the way, I am in full remission, complete remission. All my tests are now. Thank you. All my tests have come back normal, and I did it without radiation, chemotherapy, surgery. I did it by changing my diet, if you can believe that. Yeah, thanks. And see, now you're like talking to one of the least new age guys you'll ever meet. I'm not. And I figured I had nothing to lose because it was a slow-growing disease that I had. I had some time. I had 6 months before I had to make a decision. So I figured, hey, what do I got to lose? I might as well do this. At the worst case scenarios, I'll be healthier when it comes time for the surgery. So, and that was what I was doing. And I found that as I did, and I was all in. I tend to be, when I'm committed, highly committed. And so I was all in. First thing that happened was I lost over 40 pounds in 3 months, which I've kept off. But then I started to find that the cancer started to go into remission, which is just mind-boggling to me. And I tell you all this because we're talking about the breaths, treasuring the breaths that you have left. And so a lot of people would assume that's the story that I'm going to tell. I'm not going to go into detail about it. However, what my wife and I did, we wrote an entire book on my experience. So take a look at that. We'll be coming out with actually a full cookbook, which my name is on it, but it's my wife, and it's Eddie Esposito. I don't know if Eddie's here. They're the ones responsible. I have attended. There's Eddie. Eddie's the chef for the book. Amazing chef. Chef to presidents. He's actually cooked for a number of presidents. So he's in the book. I'll be honest. I don't say it in the book, but I burn water. So I'm not a chef, but I guess I had the experience, so my name's on it. But that's actually not the story I want to tell. I've never told this story publicly. But I think the first time that I really started thinking about treasuring the breaths that you have left, well, actually, I can tell you the exact day that I started thinking about that. It was, in fact, May 8th, 2006. May 8th, 2006. I know because of a very specific thing that happened. I was at home, and I was writing that day. I was working on a book, and my son was there. He was off that day. My son was at home. He was upstairs, and I was writing in my office. It was a little after lunch. I was hungry. I went into the kitchen. I heated up last night's dinner. It was a tri-tip. And so that was before I started the Meisner plan. So it was a tri-tip. I brought it in. I'm kind of half working, half eating, not paying a lot of attention. Took a bite of steak. And it was a little bit gristly. And I took a bite. And it's interesting because 2 months earlier, it's funny how life works. I was at an event, and a young man was choking on something. And someone I know ran on over, did a Heimlich, popped it out. And I sat there and I thought, what would I do if no one were in the room and I were choking on something? What would I do? And I thought, well, I would just kind of throw my body on the ground. I did. I just threw my body on the ground. Pop it out. Yeah, okay. Next thing. And that was it. I spent 10 seconds, 15 seconds thinking of what I do. Sitting there, eating, May 8th, 1 o'clock, 2006. Take a bite. Tri-tip. Swallowed. Piece went down, but a string, little tendon was attached. I swallowed. Second half came down. Completely got stuck in my throat. Now, I don't know, some of you may have experienced this. My first thought was, I'm going to dial 911 because I realized it was stuck. But then I couldn't speak. So I'd be 911. So that wouldn't work. And then I thought, wait a minute. threw my body on the ground. I got it worked out. I stood up, threw my body on the ground. No good. Nothing happened. Nothing. I figured, okay, this has got to be really, really good. I took a running start, ran, jumped into the air, did a World Wrestling Federation body slam. No joke. Boom! Hit the ground. It popped out. I went, and it went right back in. Swear to you. Went right back in. Now I'm thinking, really? Really? So now I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to run upstairs to my son. And so, because he was in the house. And I'm going up the stairs. I'm a long way from him. And I start to pass out. I could feel myself getting faint. And I figured, all right, and listen, honestly, I thought, I am not going to have my son come down the hall, and I'm going to be dead there on the stairs. That's just not going to happen. So I just threw myself against the stairs to have the stair hit myself right in the stomach as hard as I could. And that time it went pop, pop, and completely came out. It was an interesting, amazing experience, but I'm going to tell you something that's really even more amazing. Just incredible, true story. The phone rang. Within 20 seconds, the phone rang. And to this day, I don't know why I went down and answered the phone. I could hardly speak, you know. But I answered the phone. I'm like, hello? It was my mother. And my mother said, hey, honey, how you doing? Fine. She said, are you really? I was like, yeah. She said, I don't know. I just felt compelled to call you. You okay? It's like one of those Twilight Zone moments. Total Twilight Zone moment. So that's when I really believe I started to think about you gotta treasure all of your time. It goes by pretty quickly. And treasuring your time is really about having a life experience that you're good with, that you like, that you're doing the things you love. And the people in your room make such a big difference in not only who you become, but how you can help others. You're better to help others when you've surrounded yourself with people that you want in your room. All of that's very, very, very important. And the way to do it is to have a really values-based decision-making process, a values-based decision-making process. So you got to think about the values that you have and the decisions that you make. And to do that is you think, well, what are your values? So I'm going to give you a couple of things to do to help you think about what your values are personally. How do you figure that out? Here's how. You got a pencil, paper, write a couple of these things down. It's easy. Identify, and I'm going to give you a few seconds. Identify all the times. I want you to pick one time now. And then later, think about more. All the times when you're the happiest. And be specific. It's like a good referral, you know. Specific is terrific. It's like a good weekly presentation. Specific is terrific. Think about a time that you were the happiest. Write it down. Now, write this next to it. How did you feel? How'd you feel? You were happy? How'd you feel about it? Besides happy, how'd you feel? Now, identify all the times that you felt a sense of pride. Not false pride, but you really felt good. You felt good about yourself. Okay? You felt good about something. That's the second one. Write that down. Write one down. Later, I want you to come down and think about other times that you felt good. How did you feel when you think about that time that you felt proud? Other than proud, how did you feel about it? Now, identify the times when you were most fulfilled. It wasn't really happy, or it wasn't being proud. You just felt fulfilled. You felt like you accomplished something. What was that? What happened? And how did you feel? How did that make you feel? You see, your values are expressions of your past experiences of happiness, pride, and fulfillment. Your values are expressions of your past experiences of happiness, pride, and fulfillment. And when you understand your values, you're then going to be better able to bring people into your room that fit those values and fit your mission. The people you want in your room and in your chapter should be congruent with those values. Your room is going to be an unhappy room when you have people there that are incongruent with your values. That's what brings great stress to all of us when we have people in our room that are incongruent with our values. Listen, I'm guilty of letting people into my room that I shouldn't have. But my doorman and I, we're working on that. We are working on getting people out of my room who aren't congruent with my personal values. The quality of your life depends on the people in your life. The truth is, though, that who's in your room depends on the quality of your life. And who's in your chapter depends on the quality of your business. Are the people in your chapter angry, loud, chaotic, busy, full of drama? Are they just plain weird like I showed before? Are they toxic? Are they angry? Get them out of your room. Get them out of your chapter. Get them out of your life. Maybe they're just not ready. Who knows what the reasons are? It's not a good fit. You are, in fact, the architect of your room. You're the architect of your life. You are the architects of your BNI chapter. Design a room for success. Design a chapter for success. Surround yourself with the kind of people that you aspire to become. You have to understand that it's okay that your mission and your values be aspirational values. It's okay to say, I'm not quite there, but that's where I want to be. It's a work in progress. I can guarantee you I am not quite there on many of the things that I'm trying to do to create my own room, but it's an aspirational value, and that's a good thing. It's okay to have values that you are aspiring to the things that you want to be. Who is in your room? This concept is, I believe, a brilliant concept. I can say that because it wasn't mine. It's Stuart's idea. He was kind enough to invite me. I told the directors yesterday, the truth is he invited me because I harassed him so much about coming up with the book that he finally said, okay, fine, you write it with me and we'll do it. And what we have is the BNI edition of it before the public edition. So this book, it won't be available on Amazon. It's just a BNI edition. It's also very BNI-centric. There are many stories literally about BNI that are in this book. So listen, I hope this material helps give you a frame of reference for conceptually the kinds of people that you want to bring into your room. Let me just give you a few closing remarks if I can. Truly, the quality of your life depends on the people in your life. The quality of our organization depends on the people in our organization. If all of the people row in any organization, row in the same direction with a shared mission, that organization can dominate any industry in any market against any competition at any time. BNI has dominated its industry in almost every market against all the competition for more than a decade now, and it's happened because of a shared vision and a shared implementation of that vision. Mom got it right. We become the people that we hang out the most with. Think about the people in your life. Are these the people you truly want around you? It's easy for me to ask. If you say no, it's easy for me to ask. If not, why? Why aren't they the people? But the truth is, the more important question really is, why not? Why not today make a commitment to put people into your room that add value to your life. They're not just a dollar sign that you think you can generate more business from. They truly add value in your life because they share your values as a business professional. You are the architect of your room. You are the architect of your chapter. You are the architect of your life. The quality of your life depends on the people in your life. Why accept caustic when colleague is an option? Why accept takers when teamwork is an option? Why accept combative when collaborative is an option? Why accept mediocrity when excellence is an option? It's been great talking to you here today in Nashville. Look forward to the Ask the Founder later. Thank you very much. Thank you.